So what we're going to look at in this lesson is the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is this guy here. Now you don't need to memorize this quadratic formula. It'll be in your logbooks, for example, when you're doing your junior cert. But it is important that you know how to use it. And the quadratic formula is used on quadratic equations. So if we have a look at this example here, so this is an example of a quadratic equation. Why is it a quadratic? Because it has this x squared value. And generally its quadratic equations are in this form. Ax to the power of 2 plus bx plus c. Now, what's important is that you know what you can identify a, b, and c when you're given a particular quadratic expression. So for example, if we were to look at this quadratic here, and if we need to be able to identify what's the value for A, what's the value for B, and what's the value for C. So that's the first thing you want to do. So you can write down, for example, so A is equal to, B is equal to, and then C is equal to. So if we have a look at this quadratic formula, or this quadratic expression, what we can say is that A is the number that's in front of x to the power of 2. Okay, so in this case, this is 1x to the power of 2. So therefore, a is equal to 1. Okay, because remember, when you have a term like this, the number or the coefficient for the variable part is the value for a when we're using the quadratic expression. Okay, so in this case, a is equal to 1. So this is just x squared, or another way to say it is it's 1x squared. Okay, so they don't write in the 1 in front of it. So there's just 1x squared there. B then is equal to, so we can see here in our formula, this term here represents the term that has b in it. So therefore b is equal to 4. And then we want to look at what's the value for c. So it's plus c. And in this case, the value for c is minus 21. Okay, so minus 21. So that's the kind of first part. So being able to recognize this as a quadratic, identify the parts that you need to be able to put into the formula then that you're going to use. And also as well, when you have a quadratic, it needs to be in this form before you start identifying what a, b, and c is. So in other words, it has to have each of the terms equal to 0. The next thing we want to do now is we want to take these values and we want to substitute them into this formula. So for example, we're going to use this formula here and we're going to substitute in our values. And what this formula is trying to find out, we're trying to find out the roots, or we're trying to find out like what is the value of x that satisfies this expression. So for example, the number that when I put into this expression, when I put in here, it'll all, when you multiply it all out, it'll be equal to 0. Okay, so generally there'll be two roots that we will look at. So there'll be a plus and a minus value. So how do we do that? So we want to look at this. So we take our values that we've identified from the quadratic and we substitute them into the formula. So for example, what would that look like? So it's going to be x is equal to minus b. So b is equal to 4. So it's going to be minus 4 plus or minus, so this is from this formula, the square root of b squared, so b squared, which is just 4 squared, and minus 4 times the value, and I'm just putting them in brackets here, so times the value of a, which is 1, times the value of c, which is equal to minus 21. Okay, so that's the top part of the formula, and then we want to put the bottom part then, which is equal to 2 multiplied by the value of a. So it's 2 multiplied by the value of a, which is 1. Okay, so that's the first part. Now, if you do this, you'll get some marks in your exam. So again, just very important that you don't need to memorize this formula. It'll be in your logbooks. The next part then you want to do is you want to start simplifying this this expression here. So again, it's important that you follow BIMDAS and that you carry out. So what I would do is first I'd simplify the top part first, and then I'd start to simplify the bottom part. So if we take this top part here, so we just need to like multiply all of this out. So if we take, so for example, this is going to be equal to, and I can just write this over here. So it's equal to, so we can start simplifying this. So it's going to be minus 4 plus or minus the square root of, and we want to simplify what's inside this square root. So for example, we have, and we can use our calculator. So if we take, so for example, we'll do this part here. So minus 4 multiplied by 1 multiplied by minus 21. So that's going to be, so if we say, so minus 4 by minus 21, that's going to give us a plus. So 4 multiplied by 21, that's equal to 84. Okay, and then 1 multiplied by 84 is just 84. So this here will be plus 84. So, and then it's going to be 84 plus 4 to be squared. So 4 and 4 is 8. 8 and 8 is 16. Okay, so plus 16. So that's going to be equal to 100. Okay, so the top part will simplify to 100. So that's going to be the square root of 100 over 2 multiplied by 1, which is just 2. Okay, and then what we want to do now is we want to simplify this. So this is going to be equal to, so we can say that x is equal to minus 4 plus or minus, so the square root of 100 is just 10 over 2. So now this plus or minus here. So what this means is that you can have, like, there's going to be two different roots. So for example, if we let this be plus or if we let it be minus. So what's that going to look like? So if we have minus, so if we say minus 4 plus 10 divided by 2, okay, so that's going to be one value that we could have for x, or if we let it be the negative value, okay, so it's going to be negative 4 minus 10 divided by 2. Okay, so you're going to have these two values for x. So if we look at the top one, what's that going to be equal to? So it's going to be minus 4 plus 10. That's just going to be, if we're on minus 4 and we plus 10, we end up on 6 divided by 2, which is just going to be equal to 3. So in one instance, x could be equal to 3. Or if we let it be minus here, it's going to be equal to, so minus 4 minus 10, which is equal to minus 14, divided by 2, which is equal to minus 7. Minus 7. So essentially what we've done is we've used this quadratic formula to find the roots for this quadratic equation. Okay, so we can say that x is either equal to 3 or x is equal to minus 7. So that's the answer, if you like. They're the roots for this. So x is equal to 3 or x is equal to minus 7. Okay, so it looks something like that. So what does that mean then? What do we mean by the roots? Well, it means that this formula tells us the values that we have to get, that we can substitute into this, that will give us this expression. So for example, if I was to take this value of 3 and I was to substitute it in here, what you'll find is that this expression here will equal 0. If I was to take x as minus 7 and I was to substitute minus 7 into this expression here, it would equal to 0. So that's what we mean by finding the roots, for example, of a quadratic equation. So again, this is what's known as the quadratic formula. This is how you use it. There's nothing overly complicated about it. You just have to be able to identify that it's a quadratic, write it in this form, ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, like we've done here. Okay, identify what a, b, and c is. Okay, so in this particular quadratic, a is 1, B is 4 and C is minus 21. Then take the values and substitute them into this formula. And then you can simplify the formula and then solve for the two values, like what we've done here. Again, you don't need to memorize this formula. This formula will be in your logbook. Okay, so that's what's known as the quadratic formula.